Hi everyone, welcome. Thanks for attending our breakout session of campus services for you and your online students. It's good to see you all here. I'm glad that you're joining us today. So just so you know, our session is scheduled to go to 12:15, and that's so that we can get to lunch by 12:30, but all we have to do is walk down 2 flights of stairs, or 1 flight of stairs. And so we are going to run the session just about 5 minutes longer, but you'll still be on time for lunch, and which I won't be lost right here. So we have a really great collaboration of information for you today. So let me just give you a little bit of background information about how this session kind of came to be. Last fall, I was teaching an English class online, and one of my, I ended up with a very unexpectedly difficult situation with one of my students. The student had a letter of accommodation for some disabilities that just indicated that he needed some extra academic help. He needed extra time on assignments, he needed some clarification on lesson material, and maybe some explanation of assignments. So everything, seemed to be fine there. As the semester got going, it became apparent that the student had some undisclosed disabilities that made things a little more difficult. And he began getting very frustrated, very stressed, very angry, and began lashing out at me as, sorry, I didn't know there was emotion packed to this, but as his instructor. He eventually filed a complaint with me, against me, and then filed a formal grievance against me. Because he felt that I wasn't helping him enough. The help that he wanted was that he wanted me to correct his work and then give it back to him so that he could fix it and then resubmit it. And I felt that that would be unfair to the other students. And then that particular accommodation was also not listed in his letter of accommodation. So as it all came out, we found that the student had these issues with other instructors and with the tutors at the tutoring center. And so it just became kind of a difficult situation. I eventually ended up filing my own grievance against the student.
Yeah. No.
Sorry. With the honor code office. That was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Because as an instructor, you grow to love your students. And we feel a stewardship over them. And I wanted nothing more than to help him. And to file that report against him was very difficult for me, but that was the way that we could get the conversation going to help the student to the full extent that he needed the help. So as this difficult experience kind of rolled out, I found I was feeling very nervous. I didn't know how to handle the situation. I didn't know what to do with the student, but I found that there was a wonderful support network already in place for not only me as the instructor, but for my student as well. And so there were people just already in place with the information that I needed to help me help him. And so our training team, Brother Ashby and myself, which I didn't introduce myself, I'm sorry, I'm Kim Thueson, and we decided that as we were planning these breakout sessions, that we wanted to give you some information that would help you better understand the network of support and help that you already have in place as instructors. And not just as it relates to an experience like mine, but as it relates to any experience that you might come across with your students. And so we brought in today some representatives from 4 of our campus offices to share an overview of the services that they have for you and your students. We have with us Brother Nate Reese over here in the dark from Disability Services, and I'll tell you, Brother Reese is the one who helped me through that last fall. He was amazing to help me understand what my options were, what my limitations were as an instructor, what my students needed, what needed to happen. And I appreciate him so much. I will be forever in his debt. So Brother Reese will speak to us. And then and we also have Sister Rihanna, I don't know how to say your last name. Jemmy. I was going to guess that. Rihanna Jemmy from the Student Honor Code Office. And then we have Sister Ina Rodino. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Right, okay, thanks. From the McKay Library. And then we have Brother Greg Hazard from Academic Support. And so I'll tell you that Nate and Greg are going to have breakout sessions tomorrow as well, where they can expand on what they're talking about today. Jared Goodat has a breakout session tomorrow about student honor code, and Rihanna will be sitting in on that one as well. And then McKay Library, Chris Olson tomorrow has a breakout session. So as the information that you get today will be overview. If you have additional questions or need additional information, that will be available as well. So I'll turn the time over to our presenters, and we'll hear from Nate, then Rihanna, then Ina, then Greg. And thank you so much, the four of you, for joining us today. And we're looking forward to the information that you have.
All right. Thanks, Kim. As I was in the breakfast little conference thing this morning, and a lot of you came up to me and asked questions, and I found that there isn't one answer for all your questions. So I know that a lot of you have experienced, had some experiences with students that have provided accommodation letters or disclosed disabilities. So if you do have any questions with that, feel free to reach out to me, email. Here at this conference, you can come and talk, grab me if you can find me. Like Kim said, tomorrow I will be presenting, so you're welcome to come to that and ask questions as well. But feel free to contact me anytime if you have any questions, because each situation is going to be unique. Kim's specific experience that she referenced was quite unique. There really aren't a lot of those types of experiences, so don't feel discouraged or feel like that's a common theme amongst people or students that have disabilities. And one of the things I wanted to share with you before I get into my presentation, and as they're trying to get the screen going, is the policy on disruptive behavior in class. And this is a policy that comes from the Honor Code Office. I hope I don't steal this information from somebody's presentation, but I'm just going to read to you this statement on disruptive behavior. It says, students involved in behavioral misconduct, abuse of administrative processes, violation of university policy of procedures, inappropriate classroom behavior, intimidation, threats, violence, or other inappropriate actions, whether on campus, in BYU-Idaho approved housing, in community housing, in public, or in any BYU-Idaho program or activity, may be required to leave the institution or its properties when their misconduct significantly and adversely impacts the university's ability to perform its mission or disrupts the general environment BYU-Idaho is striving to achieve. In cases involving an individual with a disability, including mental disabilities, this policy will operate to make a determination based upon an individual's behavior rather than upon the individual's status of having a disability. So I think that's a pretty clear statement that explains that disability does not excuse the poor behavior in classroom, online settings. So if you come across a student who you feel is inappropriate, whether it's through the online discussion threads, things like that, making inappropriate comments, personal attacks, things like that, and you know maybe the student has a disability, don't use that as an excuse. You can still hold them to the same standards as everybody else, and I think that they need to be upheld to those standards so that they can learn and grow, because that's going to continue throughout their lives. With that being said, we are disability services, and that's okay.
We just can't find how much projector.
Do you have any tech people in here? You're all online instructors. It's okay. I can continue on while they're trying to figure that out. So disability services, we're located in the library, the McKay Library, and one of the questions I had this morning a lot from the people that interacted in my booth was, how do you accommodate students with disabilities that are online? I mean, because you think of disabilities, a lot of times we think of the physical and changing, modifying the classroom, making sure that the classrooms are accessible, campus is accessible. As an online student, we don't control their environment necessarily. They have their own control in that aspect. However, a lot of the disabilities that we're seeing nowadays are learning disabilities, mental health, things like that, that still have an impact on their learning. And so some of the common accommodations that we provide are extended test time. We approve that. And all right, this is good. So extending test time is a common one. Having the ability to negotiate deadlines, you guys have probably seen that in the letters, and that's a really vague statement. And the reason why some of our statements in the accommodation letter that you see are so vague is because each instructor teaches differently, the course is different. We don't know your class, we don't know how you have it set up. And so you kind of have these guidelines, but you're the determiner of what is going to be appropriate and what's reasonable. And so when we ask for extended time on tests and quizzes, typically the standard across the nation right now is time and a half. So students, if you have an hour test, then allow them to have at least an hour and a half. You can determine if you want to allow more than that. Negotiating the deadlines, if it's a timed assignment, if it's due on a hard, firm date, if they're working with other group individuals and it's really difficult to coordinate because they have a group project, that might not be a reasonable accommodation to extend that timeline. You might just need to tell a student, you know what, this is a fundamental requirement of the course, and so we can't alter this aspect of it. But if it's just an assignment that can be extended a day or two without significant difficulty or repercussions, then that's appropriate. So let me jump back a little bit now that we have this going. This is who we are. Brother Gordon is our director. I was hired on as an administrator to cover the online and pathway students specifically. I also help with the on-campus students. Brother Rick's there in the middle. He's our assistive technology coordinator, and his primary role is to make sure that course material is accessible, and students that have disabilities that can't access the material, such as visual impairments, hearing impairments, things like that, we make sure that he makes sure that they have that access. Val Stern, she's our deaf and hard of hearing coordinator, and then Vinay Wilkinson, she's our office assistant. This is our unofficial mission statement. Just to give you a brief background on where we came from, Brother Gordon and I. Brother Gordon worked in the Honor Code office for several years, and he and I both were hired on just this past fall because the previous administrator, Red Taylor, retired. He had been the director of disability services for about 33 years. So we're coming on, and they knew that there was going to be such a great growth in the online world, so they brought me on to help cover that. But our mission statement is this: disability services seeks to provide qualified students with disabilities equal access and reasonable accommodations appropriate to their disability and to all opportunities at BYU-Idaho, and to create an atmosphere that facilitates learning and assists students in reaching their full potential. It's probably a run-on sentence for all you English teachers. That's unofficial. So these are the laws that we have to follow. We're under Section 504 of the Rehab Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So in that, it states that no otherwise qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely by reason of his or her disability be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So the law is there that we have to follow. And with that, this morning I talked to a lot of instructors that are also elementary teachers and high school teachers and are familiar with the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and students that might be on IEPs and 504 plans. And one of the common clarifications that we make every day to parents usually is that there is a difference between elementary and secondary education to higher education. So the law changes actually, and it's different. We are not under IDEA in higher education law, so we don't follow an IEP or a 504 plan. The 504 plan that we follow is the law states that we have to provide equal access to students. And so in the lower education, the wording is that students will be guaranteed success under an IEP. They're guaranteed that they'll have all the supports that they need to graduate and strive to be successful. So they have a team of people that try to, once they can identify the individual, they try to provide those services. In higher education, it's up to the individual. Those supports kind of fade away a lot, and this wording changes from success to access. So we guarantee that they'll have equal access as everybody else, but we're not going to guarantee that they're going to be successful in college. We can't change the academic standards or lower them or modify them to a lower standard. So, but we can provide what we call reasonable accommodations. And so we talked a little bit about some of these accommodations, and there's just a few examples that you can take a look at. These are ones that I kind of picked out that are more common for the online and pathway students. Obviously, as an on-campus student, there'd be a lot more or different accommodations, I guess I could say. And these are the steps for receiving accommodation. So many of you have probably received letters from students from our office, or you've had a student say, hey, I have a disability, can you give me extra test time on this? If that happens, the best thing to do is to refer them to our office. Our office is the office that's designated to oversee that function, and we're familiar with the laws, and so it just kind of protects you and the institution by referring them to our office. So the steps are, once you've sent a student over to our office, they provide us with documentation on their disability. And we prefer to have current documentation from a licensed professional. Right now with the pathway students, you know, we're serving students all over the world, and sometimes students can't afford to get certain testing or evaluations done. So there are some special circumstances where we can help out and look at the history and what's been going on, but we don't pay for any evaluations to get tested. So they provide us with their documentation, and then they will meet with usually me as I'm the online administrator, so I would talk to them over the phone, or if it were via Skype or some type of conversation where we discuss their disability needs and accommodation needs in the classroom. And we try to figure out what's going to be the most reasonable and appropriate accommodation. And then our office, we generate a letter that outlines the specific accommodations, and it is addressed to the instructor. And we give that letter actually back to the student and ask that they be the self-advocate and send that letter to their instructor, and also encourage them to just have a conversation with their instructor and communicate with them what their needs are, because they know what their disability is better than I do or better than you do. And so when they're able to explain to you what's going on after they have that letter and say, hey, this is how I function, this will be the best thing for me. Just having that communication open between you and the student is the key part of the process. Sometimes that's difficult, sometimes students are reluctant, and there may be cases where we need to communicate with the instructor on behalf of the student, but for the most part, we try to encourage them to do so. So basically, that's just a quick overview. I have a lot more information I'll talk about tomorrow in my presentation. But if you have any questions, come and talk to me. Like I said, most of the questions I'm hearing are very unique and individualized, and that's kind of the nature of disability services. So thank you very much.
It's great to be with you today. I'll just be brief and talk to you a little bit about what we're doing here at the university to help teach students student honor, personal honor, what resources are available to you as instructors that interact with them. on that, and then we'll get some more into academic honesty, which of course is a hot topic. It was great to speak with some of you this morning and understand a little bit more about that. So I provided these documents out in the, they will be uploaded to the app community if you're interested in those for your use or with your instruction, as well as the academic honesty policy that's been separated out to a separate document. So just to clarify, with all CES institutions, there is the CES honor code, which is included there on the left. And then each of the CES institutions have the specific university standards or policies that they have adapted to best match their mission. So with that, we have the 5 connecting policies to the honor code: academic honesty, student life, dress and grooming, which is always notable by the students, and of course, asked to live when, or asked to dress appropriately when they're here on campus. And then the continuing ecclesiastical endorsement and fifth church attendance, which goes along with that. So all online students are required to get that endorsement yearly during the anniversary when they first, semester they first attended. Of course, pathway students are not required to get endorsement, but are encouraged or striving to live those standards. So the Principles of Personal Honor statement that's included there on the right was first introduced about 5 years ago by President Clark. So the idea behind that is encouraging students and employees at the university all over to be true at all times. Encouraging that personal honor is central to every aspect of their lives, especially including the BYU-Idaho experience. So basically, integrity and filling their commitments and responsibilities. So just a little background with that. And I'll just show you briefly what we've been doing with our office. Very much keeping in mind remote audiences, some great tools called social media that have allowed to help us to do that for several years now. We've been pretty active with this in educating and teaching these standards, marketing, involving some student volunteer councils to do that. So it started with the idea of students teaching students, so profiling their individual lives, why they live the honor code, the blessings that come from that. My student leaders will be the first to tell you that they don't want to hear what the administration is telling them to do. So that was kind of the whole background with this. And we launched all these videos that we've included online and our social media sites that those students firsthand can tell their experiences in living those standards. And we expand that even more just to get impact and reach, and include promotions and other things to catch their attention with that. The whole concept of trying to create likable, shareable content as we include those on those sites, as well as our own department webpage, which I will get to. But just the whole idea of teaching those standards and principles. And we've had some fun with that too. Depending on the topic, you can get a lot of engagement or interest, and it's probably difficult to see those numbers, but we've had thousands reached with some of that information. So I just wanted to share when recently some of my student leaders were in a meeting with President Gilbert and a couple of the other vice presidents, as campaign and efforts we've been doing are about 3 years old now. So looking for new opportunities to teach and educate based on those standards. And my student leaders told me that, President Gilbert basically said, students want to have success at this university, they have to obey the honor code. So that's the constant question in our office, even though it's often viewed as very enforcement or disciplinary. This is something that we worked pretty hard in the last 5 years in doing. And so this is our department website. So hopefully giving you some idea for resources there if you're needing to interact or educate the students that you instruct. This was created and launched with the idea that it helps anyone's understanding on why we have the honor code, why those standards are in place, how they protect the environment of that education. And as you get, included on the right, academic honesty, as you get into each of those policies or 5 areas, there's the what and the why behind it. So, of course, I wanted to feature academic honesty for you. Those things included in the policy: plagiarism, fabrication or falsification, cheating, and other forms also of academic dishonesty. So hopefully you see this as a tool or resource in dialogue or setting expectations up front with students in your curriculum. I had a suggestion earlier of an instructor that includes intern announcements in our community prior or the beginning of the class perspective on plagiarism. And it's been our experience in working with instructors that call our office to consult that as much as, even though the policy's there, they've hopefully read it, maybe not have, they've signed, committed to that expectation and standard up front. It's always good as a reminder and to include it any way that you can in the course, and of course some disciplines especially require that with citation and things. So anything you can do to establish that communication expectation up front so that if problems do arise, you can refer to that later. I had a lot of questions too at the table this morning, help me understand what kind of things we refer to your office. That's the instructor's determination that's included in the policy, which I mentioned I also will make available on the app community. You can find it here, of course, on the website as well. But if we are contacted, we look to the instructor, to indicate what their findings were, basically investigation or, determination of what actually occurred there in the class. For them to determine the consequence, will there be a 0 awarded for the paper, do they need to resubmit it, etc. And then if that action is needed. So what I want to emphasize, and we'll get into this later tomorrow if you come to the session she mentioned that Jared will be giving, is documentation with our office, how important that is. And I was learning a lot in speaking with you this morning that, if it occurs in across other classes, cross discipline, you would never know. And we never want to see a student repeating that behavior. Of course, it affects integrity of the program, the degree. So the biggest benefit, hopefully I can encourage with you in referring to our office, is the documentation. We have a student life system that would document that as a warning if it's the first incident reported to our office. We look for you, like I said, to establish those things, that it's been handled, that you have clearly communicated that to the student. Then we just simply follow up with the student, usually by email. Of course, by email if they're remote, and just let them know that the instructors notified us of that certain incident, understand that it's been handled this way. It will be documented in our office. Please understand that if any further incidences are reported to us, that there may be university action. So it's just really, I can't emphasize the importance of that. We've been working with academics on that policy to make sure that process is there, and so that we can document that. Something else that I learned today here with you, learning, but the library actually does offer, that was one of the questions that I received, was an online checker for originality. I understand it can get very heavy to have all those papers and review for originality. So it's provided through turnitin.com licensing that the library does have. I understand English and political science, even nursing classes are using it. So that is an option to the faculty technology center that you could utilize in dealing with papers. And again, our session is tomorrow at 11:20 with Jared if you have further questions. I think it'll be a great interactive discussion on what you're seeing and how to approach it and handle with the student. Thank you.
This one's right here. Tell them that they want to just go in.
Okay, so I'm from the library. Could you just actually navigate to the BYU-Idaho homepage? That'd be great. So I have a few different things to tell you than what we've talked about today. And I'm going to show you live. And so I'm going to be over there. So if you can't hear me, just raise your hand or something and I will try to yell louder. Great? Everybody on the same page? Now you're good. Yeah, great. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to show you was we're right here under services, library right here. And everything that you find on this homepage is accessible to you as an instructor and to your students if they are regular online students. The pathway students are a little bit different. We only have about, well, one resource that's available to them, but that's a whole different story. Okay, so everything here, and I wanted you to be aware of that. And I want you to know, because if you as instructors know, then you're able to go back and help your students know and to understand. Okay, because we don't always have direct contact with the students, but you do, and so that's where this key information comes in. We are going to be talking about some more of these resources in detail tomorrow, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Just a couple things to point out. She mentioned this turn it in right here, and if you click on this button, there are some tutorials you can watch. And we also have a handout back here on the table that tells you a little bit more about that. And that's where you check for your originality, and you can have the students go there and turn their papers in and things like that.
In that case, you can talk.
Oh, you want to do that?
Yeah.
This is Chris. He's going to nap me. So I'll come back over there. So that everyone can hear me. Is that better? Okay, so the second thing I wanted to show you was our subject librarians. It's on the left-hand side of the page. And we like to think of ourselves as a great resource from the library. And we're here to help you with your students. There's one for each subject, and I am the online librarian as well. So you can always come to me directly, and I can direct you to a subject librarian, or have your students come to me, and I'll direct them to the subject librarian if it's needed. I have some cards back here on the table, and we also have pens that have our library website on it as well, okay? So one thing we like to tell people is that you have a doctor, and you have a dentist, and now you can have a librarian. Okay, because we will help you to the best of our ability. We may not clean your teeth for you, but we can help you with any of your academic research needs, okay? Another thing is that we have research guides. This is on the right-hand side of the page. And we have some for quite a few subjects. Oh, look, Chris, you popped up. And some even specifically for courses. So you can click on business right there, just click on business. We have individual course guides for business. There's also an online one specific to online that's farther down the page. And there's a page just for online faculty, for instructors, that tells you a little bit more about accessing our resources, and that link is on my card as well. So it will take you directly to this page that talks a little bit some more about some of our resources that we have. Okay. The last thing I'm just going to cover really briefly is two things. One, we have an interlibrary loan right there, and if you find anything that we don't have, we can get to you article-wise. Print book, maybe not so much, but articles, we can get to you. Ebooks, we can look into getting it for you as well. Okay, so you just sign in with your net ID, fill that out. You can direct students there as well, and they can get that for themselves as well. Okay, and then the last thing is we do have citation help to make sure that they are citing things properly, whether it's APA, MLA, and then RepWorks. They can put all of their information in there, and it will spit out a bibliography works cited reference page depending on what format they have. Okay, so that's just really, really fast. We're going to go into some more of our specific resources tomorrow and show them in a little more detail. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, or do you want to hold those to the end? Are we going to have a question and answer?
We're going to do a little Q&A at the end, but do you have a specific?
I just wondered what, you said only one thing's available to pathways. What is
Yes.
that?
Okay, if you want to go back, it's called Learning Express. On the top, go under test prep actually. Right there, the left top, Learning Express. So this is specific to test, ACT, SAT. But in there, they also have writing tutorials, grammar tutorials. They have popular software right there. So if they need help with like understanding Word, Excel, they have operating system information in there. So that's under popular software. The Adult Learning Center has the writing and grammar. And then there's also Greg's going to talk more about his writing and things that they have here online for campus as well.
What was the other question? Oh, that's it. Okay. Thanks, Hannah. Chris will be presenting tomorrow, right? So we're going to get those.
So my name is Greg Hazard. I'm the Director of Academic Support. It's good to be here. I'll try to be brief so that we're out when we're supposed to be out. I just need to say I was talking to my wife last night, and you're like all the Facebook friends I never really knew because you're out there online. It's good to see that you're, real people. We talk about you all the time. I think what I'm going to do is maybe set the stage a little bit. I too have a workshop that we're doing tomorrow, and so we'll do as much as we can with the time that we have. To give you an idea here, these are numbers from last year. Our job is to help students, once they become students, to be successful. And we do lots of things, but we're going to talk about tutoring. And tutoring on BYU-Idaho campus is part of the culture. If you look at these numbers, you can see that more than half of the students on campus are using tutors, and they're using those tutors for about 12 hours each per semester. And so it's not something that's just available for struggling students. Our best students come and get tutoring because best students know what to do, right? If they want to do well, they get a tutor if they don't understand something. And so that's the first thing I want to point out. On campus, these are on-campus students only. We had 139,000 visits last year, 142,000 hours, almost 143,000 hours, and we served 12,880 unique students, different students. And so again, we are serving a lot of students. And if you figure the commitment that the church has made to this, you take an average of 9, I'm not a math guy, so I'm going to do 10. If you're paying these tutors $10 an hour, and there's 142,000 hours up there, the church thinks it's important, right? And because we are very careful with our money. So if we move down here to online, which is where you might be a little more interested, Skype or chat. And so what we do with online students, we'll Skype in, so it's kind of a face-to-face. We use Scribbler so they can write and do math, whatever. And then we also have chat, where you can chat in, live chat, ask questions, just to get immediate feedback. But for online, last year we had 9,000 visits, 4,200 hours, and 4,400 unique students. And that's interesting. But the thing that we need to remember, if we go down here to videos, we have over 4,000 videos that are tutoring students. So for example, if you're in a chemistry class and you want to know about anions or something, you can go to the videos, you can click on a video and you can watch that video. They're short, between 5 and 10 minutes. They're short videos, they hit a certain concept. They're based on classes that are taught on campus. And so they're very efficient and simple for students to navigate. But if you look at this, and the other thing is there's 24/7 access, right? So it doesn't matter if you live in Ghana or if you live in Rigby, you can access these 24/7. So the time zone issue is not an issue for these. Last year, 240,000 views and 29,000 hours. And remember, these are short videos, 7 minutes, basically. The average time when a student pulls those up of watch time is 7 minutes and 24 seconds, which tells us that they're watching the whole video. They're not clicking on it, saying this is boring and getting out. They're watching the entire video. And so we think this is a tremendous resource for students. And we also think right now we don't have the ability to track which students are watching it, but we're thinking that a lot of online and pathway students are using this resource. And so these numbers would actually be part of the online usage up there. So my message, I guess, by showing this is, as instructors, we can encourage our students to do the right thing. The right thing sometimes is getting extra help, a lot of times, right? The problem is they may not know how to do that. They may not know where to go. You may not know where to go. You may not know how to do that. So it doesn't matter how good the service is, if students or instructors don't know how to get there, it's just a waste of time. And so what we'll talk about in our session tomorrow is how to do that, how you might, as instructors, understand better so that you can then pass that on to your students to understand it better. We also love instructor input. So if you have some videos or something that you think, this would be good for more than just my students, for a lot of students to view, you can get those to us. We can put them out there and make them available to our BYU-Idaho students. If I could just take a couple more minutes, would you go to the okay, if you scroll all the way down here, this is the BYU-I page. If you scroll all the way down, quick links. On the bottom over here, it says Tutoring Center. Now, we are academic support, but we understand that students have no idea what that means, and probably a lot of faculty have no idea what that means. We know this because we get phone calls for everything. And then we have to say, no, we're not the registrar. So what we've done is we've put tutor requests, tutoring center, because students identify with what that is. And because it is a part of the culture of BYU-Idaho, it's not at all demeaning. Students understand that it's okay here. I'm from California. Sometimes there's a stigma attached to being a tutor. We've worked really, really hard, on campus at least, to get rid of that stigma. It's not a stigma anymore. In fact, the stigma is, if you don't get a tutor, you're stupid, which is kind of reverse of what the stigma used to be. And so, you can also help with that, educating your students that, good students use tutors. That's the message, right? So if you go to the Tutoring Center and quick links, then it takes you to our site here, and we have lots of different things. I'm kind of out of time, so I won't go through a lot of this, but I want you to know how to get there, and you can kind of look at this at your leisure. Tomorrow in our session, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but there's live chats, there's there's a scheduling system where you can schedule a tutor, that kind of thing. And so if you're interested, talk to me or come to the session, and if you're not interested, have a nice day. So I think thanks.
Thank you so much. Wow. Nate, Brianna, and Greg, that was a lot of really good information. A lot of things I didn't even know, and so thank you for sharing that. You do have your sessions tomorrow also. We want to get this information out to you as instructors. Just from the keynote address, President Gilbert said, we are not in the business of delivering curriculum, we are in the business of changing lives. And I think the information that you've just seen from our 4 presenters is going to help you do that as instructors, and I just appreciate so much you bringing that information to us. I know there's library handouts on the back table there. Brianna, I don't know if you have. Anyway, we can, as you go out. But do you have any quick questions? I know we're wanting to get to to lunch. Lunch is in 13 minutes. Yeah, Ellen.
With some international students that have come through the pipeline,
Yeah.
some kids come from certain language backgrounds. I'm wondering, as far as academic support goes for these students learning English, practicing English, are there language specific teachers that maybe challenge them to?
Nate, Brianna, and Anna,
We have an English transition program as part of our academic support, and that's housed in the Reading Center. Actually, I'm meeting next week with some important people, which I'm not one, to talk about what we might do to better prepare international students. We do have a program on campus, but I just tell you, on campus, we do not have an ESL program because we only service matriculated students. So they have to pass the TOEFL test at a certain level. You understand what that is. And so campus is a little bit different than maybe the students you're talking about. So we need to get something for those students that you're talking about better than what we have. But we do have something.
Okay. I just wondered if there was a quick link to those videos you were referring to on the homepage or somewhere.
Yeah, go to the Reading Center. Maybe scroll down a little bit. And go back to academic support. Here. Scroll down. And interactive videos and quizzes over on the right. We're usually there.
Cool.
And go to the tutoring center. We don't need to open any tutors, but they're broken up. Like go to science, please. They have biology, chem. So those are classes on campus. We have Khan Academy videos, but we also have homegrown videos that our students have created, and the students report that they like. They like the homegrown videos better because our students, when they're tutoring, they make mistakes that makes the other students feel good. Khan is really professional, right? It's really polished, it's really good. Sometimes it's intimidating. So it depends on the student.
another, maybe one or two quick questions? Good? Okay, let's give them another round of applause. Thank you so much.